The ultimatum, music. High Commander Zareth stood in the observation deck of the Eternal. Dominance, his flagship that had seen the surrender of 47 worlds before him, stretched the vastness of space, and somewhere in that darkness lay a small blue planet that his scouts had discovered 3 months ago. Earth, they natives called it, a world so isolated that it had no registered presence, any galactic database, no trade routes connected to it, no alliance claimed it. It was a forgotten corner of the galaxy, ripe for integration into the Krillian collective. Zareth was a veteran of 200 cycles. His dark purple skin bore the ceremonial scars of conquest, each line representing a world brought into the collective. Soon he would add another. The thought pleased him. His species, the Krillians, had built their empire on a simple principle: unity through strength, prosperity through order. Every world they integrated became safer, wealthier, more advanced. It was not conquest, it was enlightenment. His second officer, Dalmir, approached with a data tablet. The younger Krillian scales shimmered nervously in the artificial light. Commander, our scanners have completed their survey of the human civilization, Dalmir reported. His voice carried uncertainty that Zareth found amusing. Zareth asked without turning from the window. They are primitive by our standards. Their fastest ships barely achieve 3 light speed. Their energy output suggests industrial civilization, but nothing that could challenge even our oldest vessels. Dalmir paused. However, there is something unusual. Now Zar turned. Unusual how? Their communications network is extensive, far more sophisticated than their other technology would suggest, and they have observation satellites positioned throughout their solar system, including several aimed outward at deep space. It appears they have been watching the surrounding sectors for some time. Zareth waved a dismissive hand. Paranoia. Isolated species often develop elaborate warning systems. They fear what they do not understand. We will cure them of that fear. Prepare the diplomatic envoy. We make contact within the hour. The communication array hummed to life as technicians work their stations. Within minutes they had identified the primary governmental center on Earth. A city called Geneva housed the United Earth Council, apparently the planet's central authority. Zareth found it quaint that humans had managed to unify their species. Most primitive worlds were still fighting among themselves when the collective found them. The main view screen flickered and a human appeared. She was female with dark skin and iron gray hair pulled back in a severe style. Her eyes were the color of Earth's oceans, and they studied Zareth with an intensity that surprised him. Most species showed fear or wonder at first contact. This human showed neither. I am President Alina Torres of the United Earth Council. She spoke in her native language, which the translation matrix rendered instantly. We have been expecting your contact. Zareth felt his first ripple of surprise. Expecting? How could they have known? The Eternal Dominance had approached under stealth protocol, but he maintained his composure. I am High Commander Zareth of the Krillian Collective. We represent 200 star systems and 17 species living in harmony and prosperity. We have come to offer Earth membership in our great union. Torres nodded slowly as if she had heard these exact words before. Tell me, Commander, how many of those 17 species chose to join your collective? freely without any form of coercion. The question caught Zareth off guard. All species choose freely once they understand the benefits we offer. Protection, technology, access to trade. Networks spanning thousands of light years, protection from what, Commander? Torres asked. Her voice remained calm, but there was steel beneath it. We have reviewed the historical patterns of Krillian expansion. The collective arrives at a world and offers partnership. If the world accepts, they receive technology and safety. If they refuse, economic pressure begins. Trade routes are restricted, resources become scarce, and eventually the world accepts anyway, but on far worse terms than initially offered. Zaratha's scales darken with irritation. You misunderstand our methods. We do not force anyone, we simply help species understand reality. The galaxy is dangerous, pirates, hostile empires, resource scarcity. These are real threats. The collective offers genuine security. At what cost? Taurus leaned forward. We have intercepted and decoded significant portions of your communications network over the past 16 months. We know about the Hellion species who refused partnership. Within 2 years, they suffered mysterious equipment failures, crop blights, and economic collapse. Then they accepted your terms. We know about the Vortian whose leaders opposed integration until those leaders died in convenient accidents. We know about the tribute systems, the resource quotas, the military conscription requirements. Impossible, Dalmir whispered behind Zar. Our encryption is unbreakable. But Taurus continued, we know that member species provide 70% of their military age population for collective service. We know that planetary governors must be approved by Krillian oversight committees. We know that resources are extracted at rates that benefit the collective core worlds, while outlying territories struggle. Commander, your empire is built on subjugation dressed as partnership. Earth declines your offer. Zareth felt anger building in his chest. His scales flushed darker purple, almost black. You dare to insult the collective. We have brought peace to 200 systems. We have ended wars, cured diseases, elevated primitive species to the stars. You have built an empire on the backs of conquered peoples. Taurus stood, and Earth will not join that list. This is our final position. We request that your fleet leave our system immediately. Any aggressive action will be met with appropriate response. Zarif laughed, a harsh sound that echoed in the command center. Appropriate response. Look at your world, President Torres. Your ships are slower than cargo haulers. Your weapons are centuries behind ours. Your entire planet has a combined military force smaller than the crew of this single vessel. You have no allies, no resources, no leverage, yet you speak of response. Taurus smiled, and something about that smile made Zaratha's laughter die. Commander, humanity has spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of warfare against ourselves. We have fought with rocks and spears, with arrows and swords, with bullets and bombs, with nuclear fire and biological horror. We have nearly destroyed ourselves a dozen times. Each time we learned, we adapted, we prepared for the next threat. She gestured, and the screen split. Images appeared, showing massive installations on Earth's moon and the asteroid belt orbiting Jupiter. But we have been preparing for you for 60 years, since the moment we first detected artificial signals from beyond our system, since we realized we were not alone. We watched, we listened. We learned and we built defenses. Impossible, Zareth repeated, no species develops that quickly. Tors ignored him. Commander, this is Earth's final warning. Leave our system now. Take your fleet and go. If you do this, no harm will come to you. We seek no conflict. We want only to be left alone. Zareth felt his pride burning. In 200 cycles, no one had spoken to him this way. No primitive species had ever shown such disrespect. You have sealed your world's fate, President Tors. Perhaps we will integrate Earth after all, but it will not be as a partner. It will be as a subject world with all the restrictions that status implies. Your people will learn humility. Tor's expression didn't change. That would be unfortunate. For you, the transmission ended. Zareth stood in silence for a moment, his mind racing. Then he turned to his tactical officer. Battle stations, deploy the fleet in demonstration formation. Target the human station orbiting their fourth planet. Do not destroy it, damage it. Enough to make our point clear. Commander Dalmir protested. The Collective Council has not authorized military action. The Council authorized me to integrate this world by any means necessary. Zaratha's voice was cold. The humans need to understand their place. We will give them a lesson they will not forget. The eternal dominance moved forward, accompanied by 47 escort vessels. Each ship was 5 times larger than the biggest human vessel they had detected. Each carried weapons that could level cities. Together they represented the might of the Krillian Collective, an empire that had never lost a battle. They approached Mars, where a human research station orbited the red planet. The station was small, a simple cylinder with solar panels and communication arrays. It held perhaps 20 people. It had no visible weapons, no shields, nothing that could threaten a Krillian warship. Zareth ordered, target the station's power core, 30%. Charge. I want them to see the beam too. Know it's coming, but I want survivors to spread the word. The eternal dominance's primary cannon began to charge. Energy built in the focusing chamber, a brilliant blue light that would cross the distance in seconds. Every sensor on every ship was recording. This moment would be broadcast across the collective as proof of their power. This was how you dealt with defined primitives. Fire. The beam launched, a spear of concentrated plasma traveling at near light speed. It should have struck the station directly, should have blown through its hull and crippled its power systems, should have sent the humans running for negotiations. Instead, something impossible happened. The beam struck an invisible barrier 50 m from the station. The energy dispersed across what looked like empty space, spreading and fading like water hitting a wall. The station sat untouched, its light still glowing steadily. What? Zareth began. Commander, the tactical officer shouted, we're detecting massive energy readings from the station. It's generating a field we cannot identify. Our plasma beam was absorbed completely. Fire again, full power. The eternal dominance fired its main weapon at maximum capacity, enough energy to punch through a mountain. The result was the same. The beam hit the invisible barrier and vanished, but this time something fired back. The human station's hull opened, a single port no larger than a window. Something emerged, moving too fast for the sensors to track clearly. It crossed the space between the station and the nearest Krillian escort vessel. In less than a second, the escort ship, the triumphant Victory, simply ceased to exist, not exploded, not damaged. It was there, and then it wasn't. 3,000 crew members gone in an instant, all ships. Evasive action, and Zareth screamed, but the human weapon, whatever it was faster than anything the Krillians had ever encountered. It moved through the formation like a thought-touching ship. After ship, each one it touched disappeared, not destroyed, not scattered, simply removed from existence. In 30 seconds, 12 Krillian warships and 15,000 personnel vanished. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the attack stopped, the weapon returned to the station, and the port closed. Mars hung in space, red and silent, orbited by a small research station that had just destroyed a significant portion of a collective battle group. Without apparent effort, Zareth stared at the empty space where his ships had been. His hands were shaking. In 200 cycles, he had never felt fear like this. What are they, Commander? We're receiving another transmission from Earth. Demir's voice was barely a whisper. Tors appeared on screen again. Her expression was sad, almost apologetic. Commander Zareth, you were warned. Those 12 ships and all aboard are not destroyed. They have been displaced, relocated to a position 5,000 light-years from here. They are unharmed, but they are also very far from home. Consider it a demonstration. She paused. Earth does not seek war. We do not desire empire. We want only to live in peace, to develop at our own pace, to make our own choices, but we will defend ourselves. Always, without hesitation, without mercy, when mercy is not appropriate. Return to your collective commander. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that Earth is declaring an exclusion zone of 500 light-years in all directions. Any vessel entering that space with hostile intent will meet the same fate as your ships today. Any empire that attempts to threaten, coerce, or harm humanity will discover what happens when you corner a species that has spent 10,000 years learning to fight. This is Earth's final warning. We will not give another. The transmission ended. Zareth collapsed into his command chair. Around him, his crew worked in shocked silence. The eternal dominance flagship of the Krillian collective turned and began its long journey home. Behind them, Earth continued spinning peacefully, a small blue world that had just changed the galaxy forever, a world that had looked at the masters of 200 systems and said one simple word: no. And the galaxy, watching through intercepted transmissions and monitoring stations scattered across a dozen sectors, heard that word clearly. For the first time in recorded history, the Krillian collective had retreated. For the first time, a primitive species had defended itself successfully. For the first time, the great empires of the galaxy faced a truth they had never considered. Humanity was not going to kneel. The aftermath. 6 months had passed since the incident at Mars. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. News of the Krillian retreat spread like wildfire through the communication networks that connected hundreds of civilizations. At first, many dismissed it as propaganda or malfunction in the data feeds. The Krillian collective did not retreat. The Krillian collective did not fail. But then came the recordings. Earth had broadcast everything, every moment of the confrontation, every word exchanged between Tors and Zareth, every second of the brief but devastating display of human defensive capability. The recordings were distributed freely across every known communication channel. Within days, beings on 1,000 worlds had watched 12 trillion warships simply vanish. They had heard Earth's declaration. They had seen proof that the great empires were not invincible. On the Krillian home world of Carol Prime, High Commander Zareth stood before the collective council. Disgrace. The chamber was vast, carved from single pieces of crystalline stone that refracted light into rainbow patterns across the walls. 12 council members sat in elevated positions, looking down at him with expressions ranging from anger to fear. Zareth kept his eyes fixed on the floor. His scales had lost their luster. The scars of conquest on his body seemed to mock him. Now explain yourself, Commander. The voice belonged to Council Prime Zareth, the eldest member and supreme authority of the collective. You lost 12 warships and 15,000 personnel to a species we had classified as primitive. You returned with your fleet scattered and your pride shattered. The entire galaxy witnessed our humiliation. Speak. Zareth raised his head slowly. Honored Council, the humans possess technology beyond anything in our databases. Their weapons operate on principles we do not understand. They did not destroy our ships. They displaced them across vast distances instantaneously. Our scientists estimate it would take those vessels 30 years to return home, even at maximum speed. Then we will help them break the blockade, but we will do it carefully. Taurus stood and walked to the window. Marcus, do you know what keeps me awake at night? It is not the fear that the Krillians will return or that some other empire will test us. It is the fear that we will become what we fought against. Power corrupts, and we now have more power than any species should possess. Marcus nodded slowly. The Free World's initiative has been carefully designed to prevent exactly that. We teach defensive strategies, not offensive capabilities. We share knowledge of diplomacy and economic independence. We help species stand on their own feet, and some will use what we teach them to hurt others. Tor's voice was heavy. We cannot control what happens after we share knowledge. We can only hope that by empowering the oppressed, we create a more balanced galaxy. But hope is a fragile thing. Marcus, a communication alert interrupted them. The screen on Tor's desk activated, showing the face of Admiral Sarah Akinquo, head of Earth's Defense Force. Madame President, we have a situation developing in the outer reaches. 3 former Krillian territories have declared independence. Simultaneously, they are calling it the Free Alliance, and they are using defensive strategies we taught them. Tor's felt her pulse quicken. How are the Krillians responding? They dispatched a subjugation fleet 2 hours ago. 80 ships are en route to the Hellion sector. The Hellions are requesting our assistance. This was the moment Taurus had been dreading. Earth had drawn a line around their own territory. But what about the rest of the galaxy? Could they stand by while species they had helped were crushed by empires seeking to maintain control? Could they ignore the consequences of their own actions? Marcus, convened the Security Council immediately. Tor's ordered. Admiral, maintain surveillance and prepare response options. Do not engage unless I give explicit authorization. After they left, Tora stood alone in her office. She thought about the history of her species about the countless wars fought over resources and ideology and pride. Humanity had nearly destroyed itself a dozen times. They had learned the hard way that power must be tempered with wisdom, that strength without compassion led only to tyranny. Now Earth stood at a crossroads. They could retreat into isolation, protecting only themselves and ignoring the galaxy's suffering, or they could intervene, risking becoming the very thing they opposed, another empire imposing its will on others. The Security Council met within the hour. 15 representatives from Earth's regional governments gathered in the conference chamber. The debate was fierce. Some argued for immediate intervention to protect the Free Alliance. Others insisted that Earth must maintain strict neutrality to avoid becoming entangled in galactic politics. Still others suggested that allowing the Krillians to crush the rebellion would send a message that Earth's protection was meaningless. Torres listened to all sides before speaking. We face a fundamental question of who we are and what we stand for. If we intervene every time an empire threatens a weaker species, we become the galaxy's police force. That path leads to endless conflict and eventual corruption. But if we do nothing when species we have helped are attacked for using knowledge we provided, then our principles mean nothing. She paused, gathering her thoughts. I propose a middle path. We will not fight the Krillians directly unless they enter our exclusion zone, but we will provide the Free Alliance with additional defensive support, not weapons but intelligence, strategic advice, and perhaps most importantly, legitimacy. We will broadcast their declaration of independence across the galaxy. We will make it clear that Earth recognizes their sovereignty, and we will make it equally clear that any empire using overwhelming force against civilian populations will face galactic condemnation and economic consequences. Can we enforce economic consequences? One representative asked skeptically. We can if we are not the only ones enforcing them. Torres smiled slightly. The Galactic Trade Federation has been testing us for months, trying to isolate Earth economically. They failed because we are self-sufficient, but they are not. Their wealth depends on trade routes and resource extraction from subject worlds. If even a few dozen species begin refusing their terms, the entire system starts to crack. You are talking about economic warfare, another representative observed. I'm talking about empowering species to make their own choices, Torres corrected. Federation has operated for millennia on the assumption that young civilizations have no alternatives. We provide an alternative, not through military conquest but through demonstration that independence is possible. The vote was close, but ultimately the Council approved Torres' approach. Within hours, Earth transmitted a formal recognition of the Free Alliance to every communication network in the galaxy. They offered technical advisors, not soldiers. They shared economic models for self-sufficiency, not weapons of war, and they broadcasted a simple message that echoed across the stars. Sovereignty is not granted by empires. It is claimed by free peoples. In the Hellion sector, the people watched the Krillian fleet approach with grim determination. They had 80 ships against their 12 defensive platforms and handful of patrol craft. By any conventional calculation, they were doomed. But they had learned from Earth that conventional calculations did not account for Desperation, ingenuity, and the will to remain free. The Helens had spent 6 months retrofitting their platforms with technology they had reverse engineered from publicly available Earth data. They did not have the weapons that had destroyed the Krillian ships at Mars. That technology remained Earth's secret. But they had learned about defensive fields, about energy redirection, about making an attacker's own power work against them. When the Krillian fleet arrived and demanded surrender, the Helens refused. When the Krillians opened fire, expecting easy victory, they discovered that their plasma weapons were being absorbed and redirected back at their own ships. Battle lasted 17 minutes. When it ended, the Krillian fleet retreated with 30% casualties and 0 Hellion losses. The recording spread across the galaxy. Within hours, Earth had not fought the battle, but their influence was unmistakable. The message was clear. The age of easy conquest was over. Technology and knowledge were no longer monopolies held by ancient empires. Any species willing to learn, to prepare, to stand together could defend themselves. On Caro Prime, Council Prime Zareth watched the Hellion recordings with growing despair. The Empire was crumbling not through military defeat, but through the erosion of fear that had held it together. Subject worlds were questioning, resisting, demanding change. The collective's response, more force, stricter controls only, accelerated the process. We must negotiate with Earth, Jarrus said during an emergency council session. We must find common ground before we lose everything. Negotiate from a position of weakness, another council member protested. That would be the final humiliation. Pride has already cost us dearly, Jarrus replied. Perhaps it is time we tried humility. The debate raged for days, but eventually desperation won over pride. The collective sent a formal request for diplomatic talks with Earth. Not demands, not threats, but a genuine request. They asked for private communication away from the watching eyes of the galaxy. Taurus agreed, but on her terms. The meeting would be broadcast publicly. No secrets, no backroom deals, no manipulation. If the Krillians wanted to talk, they would do so with the entire galaxy watching. The transmission occurred 1 week later. Council Prime Zerath appeared on screens across known space, his scales dim with exhaustion and shame. President Tors faced him from her office on Earth, calm and patient. President Tors Zerath began, his voice lacking its former authority. The Krillian collective acknowledges that our approach to galactic relations has been flawed. We have operated under assumptions that are no longer valid. We request guidance on how to proceed in this new era.